So before we had a break, we were studying chapter 5. Um, I'm sure you've all been studying the Gita during the break, but nevertheless, to refresh our memory, I'll quickly go through the earlier verses in chapter 5, so we have the context under which we are studying it. So I'll just read the translation that I have here, beginning with verse 1. O Krishna, this is Arjuna speaking, you recommend the giving up of karma and again also doing karma. Please tell me clearly which of these two is better. Krishna replies, both giving up karma and doing karma as yoga lead to freedom. Of the two, doing karma as yoga is superior to giving up karma. And Krishna's idea here is that if you still have doubt about whether I should do this or that, then you should be doing karma. As long as that doubt exists, we are not yet ready for that higher state of going beyond karma. So verse 3, O mighty armed, recognize the one who neither hates nor desires as a forever renunciant. Free from the pairs of opposites, such a person is easily freed from bondage. Verse 4, children, not the wise, speak of knowledge and selfless karma as distinct. The person who practices one gains the fruits of both. 5. The ideal reached by the practitioners of Jnana Yoga is also reached by the practitioners of Karma Yoga. One who sees Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga as one alone sees. That is, both ultimately take us to the same goal. Verse 6. It is difficult to attain renunciation of karma without practicing Karma Yoga. But the meditative person who is devoted to Karma Yoga quickly attains the state of renunciation. Verse 7. With a pure mind and subdued senses, and seeing the inner self as the self in all beings, the person devoted to Karma Yoga is not bound even when doing work. Verses 8 and 9. The knower of truth immersed in the self should think, I do nothing at all, though seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, going, sleeping, breathing, speaking, letting go, holding, opening and closing the eyes, knowing that it is the senses moving among sense objects. In other words, all activity belongs to the body and mind. That the Ātman, the self, is simply this witness, the light within us. Verse 10. Surrendering to God, the person who works without attachment is not touched by evil like a lotus leaf by water. 11. The Karma Yogis give up attachment and work for the purification of the heart merely with their body, mind, intellect, and the senses. Verse 12. Giving up the fruits of work, the steady person attains supreme peace. Filled with desire and clinging to the fruits, the unsteady gets bound. 13. Mentally renouncing all work, the self-controlled person dwells happily in the city of 9 gates, neither doing anything nor getting it done. 14. The Lord creates neither agency nor actions, nor the connection with their results. It is nature that functions. The idea, this is one of the important verses as we saw when we studied it earlier, that swabhavastu pravartate, it is nature that functions. Things in which we have no stake, no personal stake, either things by which we are not directly or indirectly affected at all, it is easy to be a witness to those things. If you are interested in astronomy and if we look through the telescope and you see great upheavals occurring in distant galaxies, and people enjoy looking through a telescope. Although if we were in those galaxies with all those things exploding, it wouldn't have been fun. But we are not directly affected by it, and so we are able to be just witness these phenomena. But when we come closer to the earth and closer to home, closer to people we know, the things we know, the things that we are connected with, anything happens to them, we are affected by it. Good things happen, we feel happy. Terrible things happen, we feel miserable. And so, what this verse says is that the state of enlightenment would mean I'm able to look at everything, things in distant galaxies as well as things immediately around me, with as much detachment, just as a witness, just recognizing that changes, whether those changes are occurring in far away or near me or even within me, all those changes is just nature doing its work. And I'm just the light looking at it. It's a great idea, but only when we try to put it into practice we realize how tough it is. But that's the idea, to recognize that everything happening, not just outside, even the thoughts that are going on in my mind, it's nature functioning. There are certain desires, certain samskars. Those samskars are coming up, creating all these desires. Can I look at even the thoughts in my mind as objects, just like I'm able to look at these chairs, tables, and everything? It's tough. It's not easy, but that's the goal. 15. The omnipresent Lord accepts neither the merits nor the demerits of anyone. Knowledge is covered by ignorance, and that deludes people. 16. But just as the sun reveals everything, the knowledge of those whose ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of the Ātman reveals the Supreme. 17. They attain to the state of non-return, that is moksha, whose being is absorbed in that, whose very self is that, who are rooted in that, whose supreme support is that, and whose impurities are destroyed by knowledge. Verse 18. The knowers of the Ātman look with an equal eye on a Brahmin endowed with both learning and humility, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. Not seeing any difference in them because the reality within them is one and the same. But the body, the external covering that covers that, seems to cover that light within, that is different. 19. Life has been conquered by those whose minds rest in evenness. Since Brahman is even and without imperfection, they indeed rest in Brahman. Evenness is no distinction of any kind. Verse 20. Resting in Brahman with a steady mind and without delusion, the knower of Brahman does not rejoice on receiving what is pleasant and is not agitated on receiving what is unpleasant. That is what we have done up to this point. So today we begin with verse 21. Bahyasparsheshvasaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. With the mind unattached to external objects, the knower of Brahman attains the bliss of the Ātman. One whose mind is immersed in Brahman attains imperishable bliss. With the mind unattached to external objects, because it is this attachment in one way or the other. When the mind grasps anything outside, it cannot no longer be then just a witness. Then it becomes, you cannot get sucked into it. And it can bring a pleasurable sensation or a painful sensation. But either way, the mind is attached to it. And that is what he said. When the mind is unattached to anything, the knower of Brahman attains the bliss of the Ātman. In other words, if we want to be knowers of Brahman, then we must try to not allow our mind to get attached to external objects. And the only way we can do that is recognize that the mind is as much an external object as the object that the mind is attached to. We think the mind is inside because, when we say the mind within or the heart within, we can still within what? What within? And so essentially, we are just thinking that the extent of my body, that's the boundary. So this is me. Anything outside this is the world, and anything which is inside, and that's mind and heart and everything. Now, this is the very radical position that this is not the boundary. What Gita is saying is, I'm the Ātman. Everything is outside me. The body is outside me. The mind is outside me. There is nothing inside, because the innermost thing that is here, that's me. And if I am the innermost Ātman, everything is outside me. And so the mind that is outside is getting attached to things that is outside. And the mind is as much an object as anything else. Again, intellectually, theoretically, it's amazing. But just think about it. We have spent not just years, but God knows how many lives looking upon this body as me, looking upon the mind as me. And we know how difficult it is, even some of the habits we acquire. Think about people who get attached to looking at their phone every now and then. Now, compared to this beginningless ajnanam or avidya, the smartphone is a relatively recent thing. Just a few years ago. At the most, you could say, give and take 25 to 30 years ago. But even though this gadget is so recent, even the habits that we have acquired with our digital habits are only a few years old. But when we decide to make some changes in that, we see how tough it is. So just think about the enormity of the problem. If the habits we have acquired in the last few years are so difficult to change, think about the habit we have acquired over millions and trillions of years. So this is not to downplay how tough it is. But it's also not meant to discourage us to say, then, well, it's beyond me. What's the point in even trying? Because what Gita keeps on saying is, yes, it's tough, but it's possible. That if I'm determined to do it through God's grace and through my own willpower, I can achieve it. And so we kind of simultaneously hold both these ideas in the heart. It is tough, but if I really want it, I can do it. Because many before me, in every generation, have been able to do it. And all of them have said, you can do it too. And so that's the hope. So it's not one of the favorite passages Swami Vivekananda often quoted was, Nayam Atma balahinena labhyaha. This Ātman cannot be reached by the weak. And by weak is not meant the biceps we acquire by going to a gym. It is the inner strength. And inner strength means every time I feel, I give up, I can't do it, then that's weakness. But if I can say, no matter what, I'll do it. Yes, I may succeed or not, but I'm not going to say no. So that kind of a positive attitude, that just being hopeful and optimistic, that's a sign of strength. People who are weak give up easily. People who are strong, and especially in spiritual life, we cannot be weak. We have to be really strong. It's difficult odds. It's tough, but and that's where our Shraddha comes in, faith comes in. If I truly have, when people say, I believe in God, that God is my father, God is my mother. Well, if this father or mother, the divine father, divine mother, who is all powerful, who loves me and whom I love, if they are here, how can I say this is impossible? How can I say I cannot do it? That's the contradiction there. So we cannot say, oh, I have faith in Holy Mother and she does everything for me, and then say, oh, but this is stuff I cannot do. That's just contradiction. It's just denying the mother in some ways. So simultaneously can we hold both these ideas, the difficulties involved and yet being optimistic, positive about it. The mind unattached to external objects. Look at the word attachment here, because attachment always leads to pain and suffering. But love, true love, always leads to joy and freedom. Love always leads to unity, not to division. And that's why, in one sense, so there is this lovely way of understanding love. And that is, every one of us has certain ideals in our mind. There's this ideal of beauty, ideal of power, ideal of strength, ideal of holiness. Even though it might be a little hazy in our mind, but there is, even if it's a hazy idea, we know this is my idea of beauty, this is my idea of strength, this is my idea. So essentially, when we like or love things in the world, we are kind of projecting the ideal in our mind. So there is an ideal of beauty, and I project it, let's say, to the rising sun, and I say, oh, this is so beautiful. What I'm really saying is, the ideal of beauty in my head comes close to what I'm seeing outside. And that's why I say the rising sun is so beautiful. But it's what I really love is not the rising sun. The rising sun never has spoken anything to me, and I have no connection with it. And yet, what I'm really loving is my ideal somehow reflected from that external object. But what often happens is you keep on looking at the rising sun. The first time you see a rising sun, you may be thrilled by it. You keep on looking at it day after day after day. Every time it's not very different from what you had seen the previous day. Most things that we love in life, sooner or later, the shine begins to wear off. Because somehow the ideal that we have projected on external objects, on things and people and food and places and so on, those external objects can never measure up to the ideal itself. At some point, sooner or later, everything just falls short of the ideal. And that's why we say, oh, first when I saw this, I was so excited. And then after some time, well, I'm no longer as much excited. So the ideal is no longer reflected in that external entity. What happens eventually? Not in all cases, but in some time or the other, what happens is we then say there's no point in trying to project my ideals onto anything in this perishable world. Let me just go to that ideal itself. And God, in whichever way we think of the divine, is really nothing but the best and the highest in everything that the mind is capable of imagining. If all those ideals are synthesized together, that would be the divine being. So Sri Ramanuja, he refers to God in his commentary as Sakala Kalyana Guna Nilayaya, all the most auspicious and greatest qualities, and the divine is an abode of that. And that's why the divine is whatever our idea of beauty is, and strength and holiness and so on, all of that represents divine. And here is the difference. When we actually experience God, direct experience of God, we will find that it's the ideal that falls short. That the reality of God is much higher than whatever the mind may have thought. It's easy to say, oh, Krishna is so beautiful. And we might have imagined Krishna in some way, and we have some idea of what that beauty of Krishna may be. But when we actually stand in the presence of Krishna, we might think, oh, this is way more beautiful than what I had imagined. So even it goes beyond our imagination. And that's why, in a really real sense, that's why the Chandogya Upanishad says, Bhuma vai sukham. The real joy is only in the infinite. In that sense, real love, love in the truest sense of the term, a love that can never disappear, a love that can never have ups and downs, that kind of love is possible only for God. All other loves, whether you love coffee, someday you may not feel like drinking coffee. But love for God is the only love that has no ups and downs. Everything else, all other loves connected with things and in this world, has ebb and flow. Verse 22. Ye hi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavantav kaunteya nate shuramate buddha. Since the experiences resulting from contact with the senses cause only misery, besides being transitory, the wise person does not relish them. So, the idea is this. Looking deeply, we recognize that all the joy, the source of our joy at present, is really contact of the senses with the objects in the world. So if I enjoy drinking coffee, then clearly my sense of taste and just this coffee, when they come in contact with each other, then I experience great joy. There was this study done several decades ago actually about the effect of coffee on the mind. And they had obviously various parameters they studied about. So the first cup of coffee you drink, and then how it perhaps and I don't know the scientific terms involved, but how some of the changes that occur, some of the chemical changes, and how it increases your alertness, and you feel more active and you feel better. And then you take a second cup, and then it increases for the third cup. But at some point that peak is reached, and you keep on drinking cup after cup after cup, and then say maybe after fourth or fifth cup, then it's not like a straight graph. After some time, you keep on, in this one morning, you keep on drinking 9 or 10 cups of coffee, then you're not going to get 10 times the benefit. After some time, it's actually the opposite. You'll feel sleepy, you'll feel drowsy, you'll feel just the opposite. And that's the idea, that all the joy that seems to come from the contact of the senses, all the benefits that we might seem to get, they have a limit. Too much of something or too little of anything, either way can be very painful. That's why it says, besides being transitory. And this we have seen very often. No matter how tasty a food is, the joy of that taste is very short-lived, because really it's only this much distance it is traveling, the food. I mean, and how long can we, when you eat something, how long can you keep it only here? At some point, it is going to go beyond this. Once it goes beyond this, the sense of taste has nothing. Once the food has gone below into the digestive canal, you're not tasting it anymore. After that, it's just hard work, just trying to digest whatever is gone inside. So just for this 4 or 5 inches of taste and fun, there is this several long grind of a long distance. So you have to weigh the, what do you say, cost benefit analysis or something. You have to just see how much you gain in what you do, whether it's worth taking all that trouble. So besides being transitory, so the good point is, well, the joys are transitory is not such fun. But it's not as if the pain is permanent. The pain is transitory also, mostly. By that I mean, think about it this way. This particular verse, contact with the senses, exactly the same phrase occurs in second chapter. Look at chapter 2, verse 14, when Krishna says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha. Exactly the same word, the contact of senses with the objects. And that was just when he had begun the teaching. So just he had begun the teaching, so he's telling Arjuna, sukha dukkhadaha, that they give joy and sorrow. Now by the fifth chapter, when sufficient context has been created, now Krishna is pointing at the same thing, and then he says, is only misery. Dukkha yonaya evate. He is no longer saying it's joy and sorrow. It's only misery. Because, and this again something we have seen often before, that there is this one verse it comes in the Mandukya, it says that Adau ante cha yan nasti madhya kalepi tat tatha. That if something does not exist in the beginning and does not exist in the end, it probably doesn't exist in the middle also. And one example, of course, is why are we able to dismiss our dreams as unreal? And that's because the dream world did not exist before I went to sleep. The dream world does not exist after I wake up in the morning. The dream world existed only that short time that I was dreaming. It was not there in the beginning, it is not there in the end. And you say, in the middle also, it was just an imaginary thing. But that's true. If that makes sense, and it should probably, that's what we have lived our lives that way, then isn't the joy that we get is a little bit like the dream in the middle? Let's say you are eating, let's just go with coffee. If you are accustomed to drinking coffee every morning at 8 o'clock, and if that's a habit that we have, then before we have drunk that coffee, the mind is like, it's a little bit restless. It's coffee time. I need my coffee. I need my coffee. So there is that little bit of restlessness. You're not enjoying it as long as that coffee is, you're already the cup in your hand and you're sipping at it. So before you start drinking, there is that restlessness and unhappiness. Then now the coffee is in your hand. You start drinking it, and then you have this great joy. And then your coffee stock ends, and there is no second cup now. And then you're like, oh, I wish there was some more coffee. So once that joy is gone, sometimes there is a regret. You say, well, I had more. So what about the joy that I experienced in the middle? We can say, well, it's joy and sorrow, or we'll say, just like the dream in the middle, the joy was probably only an illusion. And that's why Krishna here says, everything is really only misery. And the misery is because the Ātman, which is who we are infinite, pure and perfect. And if we are now enclosed in this small little thing, it's like someone being incarcerated in solitary cell in a prison. That's no fun. But that's really what's our situation now. We are the Ātman. We are infinite and perfect and pure. And now we have been solitary imprisonment into this little body, this little mind. I can't do what I want. I can do only what this body can do. I would love to fly. Sorry, no wings. So we are limited by the body, limited by the mind. Therefore, it's only misery. That's the Gita position. Hence, the wise person does not relish them. But why should we not relish it? Because if you get relish it, if you find joy in it, then we are just kind of caught in it. Then we are once again get caught in that joy and sorrow circle. Verse 23. Shaknoti ihaiva yasodhum praksharira vimokshanat kamakrodhodbhavam vegam sayuktasya sukhi naraha. One who can withstand until death the force of lust and anger in life is steadfast in yoga and is a happy person. The force of anger and lust, and this we have seen in our life, that sometimes when we want something very badly or when we are really upset, for a first short time, when we just become aware of that desire in the heart, oh, I want this, or that little bit of irritation in the mind that I'm upset about something, that first moment when it appears in our mind, if we can act quickly, there is some hope. I can control my desire, I can control my anger, if I'm able to squelch it at that first moment I become aware of it. But if I'm late, it doesn't move very gradually. Sometimes they say, I haven't studied it deeply, but my understanding about this, even the idea of the Big Bang, the way people try to think about it, is not like everything happened slowly. Yes, the first moment, and then it was pretty quick. Within the next few seconds, things exploded with great speed. The anger and desire we feel is a little bit like that. The first time when it emerges in the mind, it's very weak. And if we can stop it there, it's much easier. But if we wait and it gets stronger, that's what is meant by the force of lust and anger. It's like if it's a very quiet river with not a very strong flow, and it's not that deep, then you can just walk across it, go to the other side. But if the current is very strong, then you can't. You'll be carried away by the current. That was what when I went to the Himalayas, and I, of course, as many of us do there, want to go to the source of the Ganges, towards the glacier from which the Ganges emerges. The closer and closer you go, the nearer you go to the source, the current, the force with which the river flows, it's very strong. It's just coming crashing down the mountain sides. And oftentimes, of course, because Ganges is seen as such a sacred river, and people want to go and take a dip in it, it's extremely cold also. But then they have put some iron chains by the side. So you just have to hold it tight, because if you have nothing to hold on to, you will just get carried. But it's really ferocious. Even with that, not everyone dares to go fully. They just kind of just go ankle deep and hold it. It's really very strong. But the same river then, when it comes down to the plains, but even in Haridwar, there is some current, but it's manageable. You can still go in the river. By the time it comes to Benares and Allahabad, then it's much easier. It's coming to the plains, the force is much less. This force of anger and lust, it can be like that nearer to the source. It's very strong. And that's why it is said, one who can withstand that force throughout one's life until death, only such a person can be said to be a steadfast in yoga, and only such a person can be happy. So, a call for real self-control, self-restraint. Verse 24. Yoantas sukhontara ramaha tathantar jyotireva sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutodhigacchati. One whose happiness is within, whose relaxation is within, whose light is within, is a yogi who becomes Brahman and attains absolute freedom. So everything is within. Such a person does not depend on anything outside. And that's real freedom. Why freedom and independence mean one and the same thing? Because if I'm dependent on anything outside me, to that extent my freedom is lost. And people speak about addiction. And yes, in a general way, when we think about addiction, which could be to alcohol, drugs, and tobacco, and things which can be very destructive to body and mind. And that's true. But if you go to a more subtler understanding of addiction, addiction really means dependence on anything outside of me. Even if it is not destroying my body the way some of these addictions can do. For instance, if I love to listen to NPR every morning or read the New York Times every morning, we might think, well, what's wrong with it? I'm getting information. It's good to be a well-informed person. True. But even there can be good addictions. But that still means it's taking away my freedom. Someday if my Wi-Fi is down and I'm not able to listen to NPR or read the New York Times, I can get like, how am I going to get the news? And I don't have, because now I'm dependent on something outside of me, and there are forces over which I have no control, and it can be taken away from me. The only person who is not dependent on anything outside is who is only dependent within. And that's why it says, whose happiness is within, whose relaxation is within, whose light is within. Because the only thing no one can take away from me is me. Whatever can be taken away from me is not me. And that is why the body is not me. Death is what? Separation from the body. If the body can be taken away from me, it's not me. If the mind can go away, it's not me. It's only the me, the real me, the Ātman. Nobody can take me away from my me. And if I can find all my joy, all my rest, all my everything in the Ātman, then I'm invincible. No one can do anything to me. They can kill the body, but weapons cannot do anything to the Ātman. I don't care if there is a snowstorm next time. I'm not the body, not the mind. The Ātman is unaffected by the snowstorm, unaffected by the winter. So if you want to solve climate problem, whenever the world outside may come to it, there is a way we can do it for ourselves. Just know that you are the Ātman, and the whole dream will end. It says here, such a person becomes Brahman and attains absolute freedom. Brahma bhutaha Brahma nirvanam adhigacchati. Reaching freedom, becoming Brahman. And these are all not to be taken literally, because how do you become something that you already are? We already are Brahman. So becoming Brahman means, now I have forgotten that I was Brahman. I now once again get back my memory of know who I already am. And so there is actually one Vedanta text called Swarajya Siddhihi. That's the title of the book, which really means attaining my own empire or regaining my own empire. So think about a king who falls asleep and in the sleep has become a homeless person. And in a dream, of course, a king who is asleep is no longer king, because the king who is asleep doesn't know I am king. So in a dream he just says I am homeless. And of course, he has all the pain and suffering and difficulties that homeless people experience. Then he wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh, I got back my kingdom." Then your kingdom was already yours. We just that you had forgotten it. That's what is meant by saying becoming Brahman. So we'll stop here today. So if you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, questions, yes.
Namaskar Maharaj. In Sloka 21, anything that happens is a wish of Brahman. Anything that happens externally is a wish of Brahman. That means the result of Super Bowl, which a lot of people were sad, was that a wish of Brahman?
No, what was the first sentence you said?
Anything that happens external as an external object is a wish of Brahman.
No. Why would anything from external object would be bliss of Brahman?
Wish of Brahman. Wish.
Oh, wish of Brahman.
Yeah. Anything happen outside, external, that's an external object. Then that means Super Bowl is an external object.
Okay.
But was that also the result was very bad for a lot of our people?
Well, if you are attached to the losing side, then the result was bad, yeah.
Yeah. Was that also the wish of Brahman?
No, I wouldn't think. It's a wish of this Brahman who is attached to that losing side.
Okay.
A Brahman who has forgotten is Brahman, just like the king who has forgotten I am the king.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Vikram, yeah.
Hari Om Swamiji. Swamiji, in these verses we minimize the senses to an extent, but can't senses drive us, motivate us to keep seeking God? So can senses be powerful tools we use to seek God?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, when we are trying to think of God, we do need the mind, we do need the senses, clearly, because when we go to a temple, in order to see the deity on the altar, of course, we need the eyes. To listen to devotional music, we need the ears, the sense of hearing. So senses can be helpful instruments if they are trained and disciplined and directed in the direction we want them to go. And that's why the Vedanta often speaks so much about restraining the mind and restraining the senses. So when the mind and the senses are under our control and we can direct them in whichever direction we want them to, then it can be helpful in spiritual life. Then we can direct them for something that will take us closer to God. Yes, yeah. So it's only the unrestrained senses that's a problem. It's like if you're going in a horse carriage and if your horses are well restrained, then they'll take you where you want to go. If the horses say, we are going to take you where we want to go, we don't care where you want to go, then we are in trouble. Because very few of us go into horse carriages. But think about even a car. When is a car a useful entity? It's like, well, everything I do, the car just follows, is supposed to do what it does. If I turn the wheel to the left, the car should go left. If the car says, you can turn the wheel wherever you want, I'm just going to go wherever I want, then that car can be actually a problem, a burden. A mind and senses are like that. Sometimes the mind may have good intention, and that's what many of us have that challenge. Mind, we say, oh, I want to sit and meditate. And then the mind says, no, no, I want to think about the Super Bowl. Then there's a problem. Now, if I can tell the mind, don't think about anything, just think about this, and that's why the mind needs to be under control. Yeah.
Another question.
Another question? Sure. Yeah.
In Sloka 14, God has created the world. Krishna says, nature has created nature like law of Newton or Archimedes principle. That is Maya. I couldn't understand that.
Yeah, so as I said, it's nature, everything that is happening in the world, it is nature doing it. To the extent we are attached to something, we are affected by it. If we are not attached to anything, then things are happening.
Is the nature called Prakriti also?
Yeah, the same. What in Sanskrit often gets called Prakriti or Maya,
Yeah.
in English they translate it as sometimes as nature. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so we will stop here today. And when we meet next week, we'll begin with verse number 25. So it's possible that we might conclude the chapter next week, but we don't know. So, but we'll begin with verse 25 when we meet next week. Jananim Saratam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu.